What's going on, everybody? This is the Wisdom Matrix, and this video is going to be based on a couple of different videos I've made. Let me unplug this, see if I can unplug it without it.
Button. Bostock Jr. Artist name. The Wisdom Matrix. Dimmed. Double. Mic lock is off. Mic lock is on.
Okay, so I guess it's working. Anyways, so this video is going to be a bit different from different from my latest videos, because I have been kind of focusing on, more deeper topics. But this video is kind of related to some of the videos I did about what is the soul and how to enter the soul type of thing, how to find the wisdom. But just going to go more in depth because there's so many different ways to enter the soul's wisdom, enter the soul even. And this comes from something that I just wrote. I just posted on Twitter. It points out that reason can only get you so far because the reason comes from the mind. So when you're trying to reason out something, don't get me wrong. Reason is important and it can be useful, but it's not the only method of doing things. There's a reason why some things that have been created in the mind, like the idea of, and there's some of the things that I've come up with and some other ideas, and like the genius ideas that people have come up with, they don't come from the mind for the most part. I mean, they land in the mind and you could almost call it ferment in the mind, and they formulate it themselves, but they don't start there. They actually start, at least to some extent, in the soul, because the soul has all the wisdom and all the knowledge that you could ever need or want or look for. So how do you enter the soul? Well, I'm going to try and name a bunch of different ways of doing this. One way I have mentioned here on this channel is to enter the heart. Basically what this means is that you feel love for something, or just feel love in general, and you can access wisdom from that point. Love and compassion, especially compassion, it opens you up to your soul, because love and compassion is one of the things that the soul is. So that's one way of finding wisdom, is by finding compassion. If you look with compassion at things, you can find wisdom. There was a video I made, How to Find Your Own Truth, that talked about that wisdom comes, when wisdom comes up, there's like love there, which is true. There's like a love compassion thing there to some extent. And another way is to, focus on the present moment, because the soul cannot necessarily be found in the mind. The soul is in the heart. Well, it's not in the heart, but it's the gateway to the soul. And the present moment is the gateway to the soul as well, because because the soul has no attachment to the past or the future or anything that's happening. It just is. It's necessarily just being. That's because it's its natural state of being. So you can focus on the present moment. That's one way of doing it. Another way is just do the letting go technique. Basically what this means is that whenever you have a desire or something like that, you can just let it all go. Relax your mind, your body, and you can access the soul by going into the heart or focusing on, the tapping into the infinite. You can see if you can find something in there that can help with whatever situation you have. There's so many different ways of doing it. Like, there's no one technique that's going to work best for one person. One technique will work really well at one point in time, and then it won't work the same way the next time. So, although the love and the compassion one is This is definitely a good one. But the present moment one does only work. I mean, it only keeps your mind from moving really quickly, which is why meditation and tapping into infinite is important, because it stops your mind for a little bit so that you can focus on your soul for a little bit. Another thing you can do is you can ask the questions that I've talked about before, like what is causing this? Why am I trying to defend this identity that I have here? Why do I have these desires? Asking questions is how you can access the soul's wisdom pretty quickly, pretty easily. And another one that I've talked about on this channel as well is called the observer, the wise observer. Basically what this is you look at your life or somebody else's life or whatever it is through the eyes of a wise observer. Just imagine that you're some holy, wise, like saint or teacher or something like that, that's loving and compassionate and looks at your life or whatever the situation is with wisdom and says, well, this is what you should do, or this is what, these are the options that you could do. There's no real shoulds or shouldn'ts necessarily, but there could be. But that's one way of doing it. One thing you can also do. This goes back to the asking questions thing again. Is ask yourself, why is my mind trying to reason out this thing? Is it because I actually believe that reason is a necessary thing, or is it because I need this? My mind needs this certainty to be, because the mind likes to have things to be certain, have things to be in a way that it likes. So it creates things like rationality and reason and desires in hopes that it can control itself, or it hopes that it can do something. And so it does all these different things. Another thing you can do is you can look within yourself. Look behind your emotions, or your mind to your emotions. And, ask, why is this emotion here? I've noticed that most emotions, not all necessarily, but a lot of them, they stay in place because of desire or fear. Even happiness, to some extent. I mean, it's not a complete. It's more nuanced than that, because emotions cannot stay there forever. But it does stay there because of attachment to that emotion to some extent. And when that emotion leaves you, you're gonna have fear, or in this case, probably, like sadness or whatever, which is caused by a desire for that emotion. So that is going to cause, that depression. So desire and fear are almost, you'd almost call them, I wouldn't call them problems necessarily, but they can be causing, yourself to be cut off from your soul. I mean, not necessarily cut off from your soul, but not accessing your soul fully, because you can never be cut off from your soul completely. But you can lose contact with it to a conscious extent. And so this is why, you need to do these things, because the way that works, the way that it seems to work, is you go to the heart and you do all this stuff, and then that's the gateway to the soul. But to do that, you have to look at the mind and the emotions of the heart to remove those emotions, or to change them so that you can contact the soul. This isn't necessarily a contact where you're getting words. It's insights. Insight is not a thought. It's like a feeling, sort of. It's like it's a hard way. It's hard to describe in words, but it's like a certainty feeling almost. but it's more than that even. It's like a knowing. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, this
10:07
is
a.m.
just a very
Artist name, The Wisdom Matrix.
this is a very short list, even though I've probably mentioned about 10 or 20 different things here.
Mic lock. Mic lock is on.
So this is why these practices are important to do. This is why it's important to ask questions and all this stuff, because what you're doing is you're removing blockages that hinder you from accessing your soul. This is pretty much what I've been working up to for a while now with these videos. Although I didn't really realize it at the time, but see, this is what happens when you get so stuck on. This is another thing too about assumptions are another way that you block access to your soul. So look at all your assumptions. What do you assume is true? What do you think is obvious about something? What do you don't even question because it seems like it's normal, or it's just not even necessarily that it's normal, but you haven't even looked at it and said, wow, this is an assumption. I didn't realize this was an assumption. This can cut you off from your soul to some extent as well. Another thing, there's a bunch of, that's one different way of gaining more access to your soul. Another thing too is that there may be assumptions about the soul too, that the soul is one thing but not another thing. That the soul is living, but it's not. The emptiness, like we've been talking about, like awareness, because the soul is awareness as well. It is awareness, which is why it's important to become aware. There's different ways to do that. Become aware of the present moment, become aware of your body. That's one way of accessing the soul too, because the stomach area, the stomach chest area is where a lot of this instinctual stuff is, and that's part of what the soul is to some extent. I mean, some of it is the animal nature of the body too, which is necessary to see as well, to have conscious contact with to some extent, so that you don't become too grounded and too stuck inside of your own head. That's one way of contacting the soul and the body. So there's three different levels of you that exist: the mind, the body, and the soul. And you want to have contact with all three in order to live a normal, healthy life. The mind, that's pretty obvious. Like your brain, your mind area. In the body, the way to do that is just to feel your body, feel inside of your body with your awareness, wherever it may land, your stomach or chest or whatever. And your soul. From that level, you can feel it from your soul with like love or compassion, or by just feeling that part of your body that I talked about, like your stomach, chest area. That's part of, because your soul is, it's another little misconception that people have. Your soul isn't just your inside of your body. Your soul is everywhere. Your soul is like all things. Another word for soul is God, I suppose. But the reason why I don't use God in this particular context is because the world has anthropomorphized God. Basically, what this means is that people have personalized God, given God human characteristics, like anger and jealousy and all these things. So that's one assumption that people have that cut them off from contact with God to some extent. Not completely, but to some extent. Another one is, the fear of God, or whatever they might discover inside themselves or their soul or whatever it might be. So basically what's your goal here is to just look outside of your normal box. Basically what this means is that your mind has a sort of preset condition that it starts in, that you have lived in for a while now. It does change, don't get me wrong, but there's like this preset like area that your mind automatically goes to. And unless you've changed it so much that it has changed, your box has either like expanded or moved or something. I might do a video on this too, because this is kind of a complicated subject. But basically what this means is that you start from a certain level of awareness. And then your awareness goes stronger and stronger and stronger. You learn more and more and more, and you change more and more and more of yourself. So that box that your mind is normally in has changed. I mean, the box is still there, but it's not nearly as strong. That's another way of cutting. That's another way of gaining access to your soul, because your soul is not boxed up. But the way that most of us live in our minds and our lives, we boxed ourselves up within these like limited ideas of ourselves. Like, we're good, we're bad, we're smart, we're this, we're gonna do this, or we're not that. We're not going to expand ourselves. I mean, we don't think this consciously, but this is what ends up happening when we get, stuck in our everyday like routines and stuff like this. This is why spirituality is important. That's another way of tapping into the soul. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this.
10:14 a.m. Artist name, The Wisdom Matrix, dim.
Anyways, this is just a very broad overview. I could go over this for another hour if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave it here because I think I covered it pretty well, and I hope I gave you some passion to try and contact your soul. Some ideas of how to do it, and some general, just like ways of being that are different from your typical way. Because that is one, like I said, that's definitely one way of increasing contact with your soul, is to expand that box outward. Because a lot of times your mind gets stuck in this one box, and if you don't pay attention to it, oftentimes it may stay the same, or it may even narrow further. So you may feel claustrophobic within this one box because you're not consciously, doing practices like, why am I doing this? What is causing this? Or focusing on the present moment, or any of the other techniques that I've talked about on this channel or on this particular video even. I mean, I gave like 30 or 40 different examples here. So anyways, this is the Wisdom Matrix. If you like this video, please like it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future. And if you got some kind of benefit from this video, you can share it with other people so that they can get the same kind of benefits as you did. This is the Wisdom Matrix, and I'll see you in the next video.
Mike